Hi, I'm here with Ed Henderson from Chilliwack, major guitar player. I'm here at the Dove Creek Studios as part of the DIMBC this weekend. And I usually start off asking a question because I'm really lazy. If I was to ask you a question about how to get started in the music business, what would that question be?
Love music. What would the question be?
Yeah.
I thought you meant what would the answer be. Ask me the question again. I had a late night.
Okay, if I was to ask you one question
Yes.
about getting started in the music business, what would that question be?
If you were to ask me one question about getting started in the music business, what would that be? Well, so I gave you the answer to what I thought you were asking me, which is how do you get started in the music business? And that is love music. You have to love music. You have to be willing to do everything to make your music. I think even more so now. That's how I got into music. I did play music when I was young. I sang a lot. The family sang together, and Bill used to teach us 4-part harmony. So I'm the youngest one, and so there would be, Bill and Joan and Fred and I, and we'd sing Lulay, we'd sing Christmas carols, things like that, 4-part and stuff. So we did that. And then when I got into, I played guitar in my early teens, but then when I fell in love with the guitar, and that's all that mattered to me. It was more like I was 15 or 16. And it was work, but it kind of wasn't work because that's all I really wanted to do. So then for me, that's what got me into it, is because I loved it so much and I worked so hard. And I followed my nose, essentially, picking my own teachers, actually. When I get to a dead end, I don't know what to do, and you think, you're either going to give up or you're going to find some way through. You find a teacher. So that happened to me several times, where I would just be hitting a wall, not knowing what to do, and then I'd find a teacher, and that would help me move through it. I think that's kind of what this whole conference is about, because there's a lot of people here who are capable of teaching and helping you through. But what is it that I think it is just got to be the love of making music and hearing music. That's the first.
Terrific. One other question. You grew up in Yellow Point.
First 5 years.
Now,
Yeah.
Did you have anyone who influenced you, a teacher or anyone?
Not about music. I mean, I wasn't even going to school at 5, right?
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, I probably lived barefoot. I probably, lived barefoot for 5 years because we were just living out in the country there.
Right.
I guess it wasn't entirely, but it seems that's what I recall. So no, it wasn't. There wasn't a music thing going on for me then. There were other influences that were really, really strong, like Charlie Pavey, who was our neighbor across the road, and they had the waterfront at Tillicum Cottages, and he and his family ran these cottages, and he was a really big influence. In a way, he was, much older. So I'm, 4 years old, and he's probably 50 years old. But it just one of those people, just absolutely straight and sweet and smart, and knew all kinds of, told stories. He'd take all the kids out on boat rides and in the summertime and tell stories about Brother 12 and stories about the tunnel between the islands that the First Nations had, between a couple of islands out there, and all these kinds of stories, So storytelling, that was an influence from him for sure.
And now you tell stories, not necessarily lyrically, but through the guitar.
Yeah, occasionally I do, write a lyric that tells a story, but it's usually all the solo music that I write for solo acoustic guitar it all has a place, or a circumstance, or a personality. It's about somebody, or it's about something, and so it's always connected. And I find when I actually give people a little clue about where that's coming from, like Saucy Joan, tell a little story about my sister and then play this piece, you get it, right?
Right.
So it's not just a chunk of music anymore, it's actually a story in music. So it's wordless story. I mean, I tell a little bit, lay it out. So whenever people buy my CD, I encourage them, open it up and read it while you're listening to it. Like,
read the liners.
To me, the recordings I used to get, when we bought the albums,
yeah.
they were tactile. You put it on your machine, and you listened to the record and you read it and you absorbed audio and what you were looking at, and they fit together. So that's how I do my CDs. So they really, each song has a meaning.
Very cool. One other thing about putting your life into your music, not necessarily emulating someone else. How does that? How do you go about doing that? It's just having the life experience behind you and being able to put your life story. That's how you become original. That's how you create your own.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's an interesting subject because, a lot of amazing people have spent a lot of time, like we were talking yesterday about this very thing. Yeah. Stevie Ray Vaughan, for instance, who's totally personal. Like, there's nobody like Stevie Ray Vaughan. Yet, he absorbed and digested other great writers, Albert King, Jimi Hendrix. He kind of ate that all up, learned their licks, learned everything, but it was still Stevie Ray Vaughan. And so it's an interesting thing about copying. If you're going to copy somebody's sound, you're going to sound like, and we were just talking about this a moment ago, young ladies who are singing that sound, which is kind of really in the head and really a little more kind of brittle and not all their natural body tone. There's only a few singers who seem to me to do that and be themselves and not copying. So how do you get this? I think what your question is how do you be yourself and still learn from other people? Because you could be so totally original that you don't play music that comes from 12-note scale. You come from a 38-note scale, and it's so foreign nobody even gets it. So pop music, we do kind of learn bits and bits. You play something that will be comfortable to people because it's within everyone. It's within the audience's grasp. So I understand why people want to copy, because it is within the audience's grasp. So how do I do this and try to not copy? There's periods in my life, people have said to me, oh, that sounds like that sounds a little bit like so-and-so, and they'll mention a player who I've never heard. Hmm. So I do listen. I have listening bouts where I'll, for instance, the latest one for me is Egberto Gismonti. I just downloaded on iTunes 4 of his CDs about 3 months ago and just been listening to them. He's an incredible guitar player. 10-string classical guitar and 12-string guitars, and he's a brilliant piano player, and he's an orchestrator, and so if I can try to think about some of those things, that I try to let that stuff wash over me and try not to pick up and take anything from it. I wash over it and try to get to the creative impulse of what he's doing, and then I think, okay, maybe that will become part of my creative impulse, and I won't be taking from him the actual chunk of music. I'm not taking chunks of music. I'm taking the sense of freedom, or because he really is very free with his playing. So if I, try and work that in, it's interesting. It's a really good question. We could talk about that a lot.
For a long time.
Yeah. So I think. The other thing is that I let music run in my head a lot. So I don't know where it's coming from. It'll be not necessarily anything I've heard. It's just kind of try to be open to hearing music. And then I try to figure out how to play that. So, and that music is usually, sometimes I think that music is something I have heard, or something that sounds like it's... that just sounds like other music sometimes, but usually not. Usually it's something really different. I'm trying to figure it out. So where does that happen? I don't know. Good question.
Well, you asked them.
Well, you asked me to ask.
No, I'm the lazy interviewer, right?
No, that's a good kind of interview. You got me going about it.
Wonderful. Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So will our readership, actually.
Good.
Yeah.
Great. So where's this going?
Take5.ca.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little local publishing magazine of the latest one.
Right on.
Yeah. And a readership of about 28,000 people.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was fun. Thank you.